All right, so let's dive into Rio real estate. We're looking at buying property in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil today. And you know what? It seems like you might be considering it too, which is awesome.
It's definitely a hot market.
Oh, yeah,
Lots of people interested in Rio.
for sure. And we've got this amazing guide written by a notary public in Rio. It's like they're giving us all the secrets. So before you pack your bags and head for that beautiful coastline, let's break this down and see if it's really as good as it sounds.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So the guide starts off with this Why Brazil section. And it's really playing up how strong the dollar is against the Brazilian real right now. So for someone coming in with, US dollars or euros or whatever it is, things are looking pretty affordable.
Makes sense. I mean, the exchange rate is definitely favorable right now.
Oh, yeah. And they're even saying there's this surge in international buyers coming into Rio. They're seeing it firsthand at their notary office.
Interesting. I've been reading about how Brazil's economy has been stabilizing recently, and they've been making some moves to attract foreign investment. So this could be a sign that those efforts are starting to pay off.
That's a great point. It's like everything's aligning.
Yeah.
But let's get down to the details here, right?
Yeah.
The guide lays out this step-by-step process for foreign buyers. So first up, you need a CPF.
That's your Brazilian tax ID, kind of like a social security number. You'll need that for any financial stuff you do down there, especially buying property.
And the good news is the guide makes it sound super easy to get. You can even apply online. So no, mountains of paperwork to deal with.
That's a relief.
Right. And then once you've got your CPF, you can open up a Brazilian bank account.
Yeah, that's essential for managing your money throughout the process. Way easier than trying to transfer money back and forth from your home country.
So we got our CPF, our bank account. We're making progress. Next up, finding a real estate agent. And this is where the guy gets really serious about doing your homework.
Due diligence is key. You want to make sure you're working with someone reputable.
For sure. So the guide says you want to verify your agent's credentials. Check their registration with CRECI. That's the Brazilian real estate regulatory body.
Right. They also mention checking online platforms like Reclaim Aqui.
Oh, yeah. Reclaim Aqui, which I guess is like a Brazilian version of the Better Business Bureau. So you can see if there have been any complaints against that agent.
Exactly. Red flags, complaints, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And here's a little inside tip, straight from the notary. They recommend asking your notary for agent recommendations.
Makes sense.
They work with these guys all the time.
Right.
They know who's good and who's not.
Absolutely. They have the inside scoop.
Exactly. So now let's talk about fees. The guide mentions brokerage fees. It's usually 4 to 6%, and this is key, it's negotiable.
Definitely negotiable.
You don't just have to accept that.
This is where having a good negotiator on your side, like a savvy notary, can really make a difference.
Oh, for sure. They can save you thousands of dollars.
Yep.
So you found your dream property, you got your agent. Now it's time for the purchase agreement. They call it the CCV down there.
Okay, so the CCV, it outlines all the details of the deal, the purchase price, the payment terms.
A whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Exactly. And at this point, you'll usually have to put down a deposit, usually like 5 to 10% of the purchase price.
Pretty standard for real estate.
Oh, yeah. Pretty typical. Shows you're serious about buying the property.
Right.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. The guide's really pushing the use of an escrow account. They even offer the service themselves.
That's a smart move, especially when you're buying in a different country.
Oh, for sure.
It protects both the buyer and the seller.
Keeps everything safe and secure.
Your money's held by a neutral third party until all the legal checks are done and the property's officially in your name.
Okay, so an escrow account, it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, adds the extra layer of security and peace of mind.
So using an escrow account sounds pretty smart, especially when you're buying, in a different country. Adds that extra layer of security. But I gotta ask, this guide is laying out a pretty smooth process. Are there any downsides or challenges that we should be aware of?
Well, like with any investment, there are always risks. And this guide, it focuses a lot on the legal and financial side of things, but it doesn't really touch on some of the bigger picture considerations.
Okay, like what? Give me an example.
Well, one thing it mentions is how Rio is attracting a really diverse range of investors right now. Tech entrepreneurs, digital nomads, you name it, which is great, but it also means the market can be pretty competitive.
So even though the dollar's strong right now, there's no guarantee those prices are going to stay low.
Exactly. And real estate, it's a cyclical market. What goes up must come down, as they say.
True. Okay, so we got to keep an eye on that market volatility. Anything else to watch out for?
Definitely the neighborhood you're buying in. The guide doesn't really get into specifics, but it does say the notary can offer some insights and recommendations.
Right, yeah, because a local expert would have a much better understanding of the different areas, the safety, the amenities, all that good stuff.
Exactly. I mean, Rio is a huge city. Some neighborhoods are all about the nightlife. Others are more, quiet, family friendly. It really depends what you're looking for.
Makes sense. Location, 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 as they say.
Exactly.
Now, what about the legal side of things? Brazil's legal system, that's different from, the U.S. legal system, right?
Yeah, Brazil uses civil law based on Roman law. So it's different from the common law system that a lot of English-speaking countries use, based on precedent and case law and all that.
Okay, so how does that affect someone buying property in Rio?
Well, for one thing, contracts are a really big deal in Brazil. Everything needs to be super clear in writing. But the good news is the guide mentions that you can find English-speaking notaries.
Phew, that's a relief. I was a little worried about trying to decipher all the legal jargon in Portuguese.
Yeah, having a bilingual notary can make the whole process a lot smoother.
For sure. Okay, so we've got contracts covered.
Uh,
What about property taxes? Are they high in Brazil?
Actually, they're generally lower than in a lot of other countries, which is another plus for investors. But, and there is always a but, the rates can vary depending on the municipality, the type of property, even the neighborhood. So you definitely want to do your research on that front.
Don't just assume anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this guide, it's a great starting point, but it's not going to cover every single detail or potential issue, right?
Right.
So what else should we be thinking about? What's missing from this picture?
Infrastructure is a big one. Rio's a stunning city, but it also has its challenges, right? Traffic can be a nightmare. Public transportation can be crowded. Some neighborhoods might have issues with water or electricity.
So it's not all beaches and caipirinhas then?
It's not always paradise, no.
Mhm.
You have to be realistic.
So if I'm thinking about buying that beachfront condo in Copacabana,
Hmm.
I should also be thinking about, like, how am I going to get there? How long is it going to take me to get around? Is the shower going to have decent water pressure?
Exactly. All those practical considerations that can really make a difference in your day-to-day life. And they often get overlooked when people are caught up in the excitement of buying a property in a beautiful place.
For sure. Okay, so infrastructure is something to keep in mind. What about hidden costs? Are there any fees that this guide maybe doesn't mention?
One thing to think about is property management. If you're not living there full time, you'll probably need someone to take care of things, handle repairs, collect rent if you're renting it out.
Makes sense.
And those property management fees, they can add up, so definitely factor that into your budget. And while we're on the subject of budget, don't forget about furnishing and equipping your place.
Oh yeah, furniture, appliances, all that good stuff.
Exactly. It's easy to overlook those expenses, but they can really impact your overall investment.
True. So we've got market volatility, location, legal system, infrastructure, hidden costs. Is there anything else we're forgetting?
One more thing, the political and economic climate in Brazil.
Oh, right. The guy didn't really touch on that.
No, it didn't. But it's important to be aware of the bigger picture. Brazil has had its ups and downs politically and economically, and those things can definitely affect the real estate market.
So don't get so caught up in the beauty and the culture that you forget about what's happening in the country as a whole.
Exactly. Real estate is a long-term investment. You want to make sure you're comfortable with the overall situation.
This is starting to feel a little overwhelming, to be honest. Are there any resources out there that can help me, like, stay informed about all of this?
Absolutely. There are lots of great news sources, financial publications, even government websites that provide information on Brazil's economy, politics, the real estate market. You can also talk to financial advisors or real estate agents who specialize in Brazil.
Okay, so knowledge is power. Do your homework, stay informed, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Exactly. The more you know, the better prepared you'll be.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from, the nitty-gritty details of buying property in Rio
Hmm.
to those broader economic and political factors.
We've looked at the potential rewards and the potential risks. It's a lot to take in, but hopefully you're feeling more informed now.
So we talked about the potential, downsides, but now I want to talk about why Rio is such a hot market. I mean,
Yeah.
besides the obvious, it's beautiful.
Right. Rio's got this unique combination of factors that really draws in investors. The beaches, the mountains, the culture, the nightlife.
And that growing economy we talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
And the guide mentions that Rio is attracting, like, a really diverse group of investors these days, from tech entrepreneurs to, like, digital nomads. What do you think is driving that trend?
Well, Brazil has been making a real effort to attract foreign investment. They've implemented some business-friendly policies. They're investing in infrastructure, technology. Plus, Rio's got this young, educated workforce, and it's becoming a real hub for innovation and creativity.
So it's not just about buying a beautiful apartment with a view. You're investing in a city that's on the move.
Exactly. And that can mean higher property values down the line.
A good return on your investment.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, so let's say I'm convinced. I'm ready to take the plunge. Are there any specific neighborhoods or areas that are particularly hot right now?
Well, the guide doesn't get too specific about neighborhoods, but it does mention that some areas are seeing really rapid growth, like the revitalized port area, for example. That's attracting a lot of attention.
The port area. Interesting. I always thought of that as kind of an industrial zone.
It was, but it's going through this massive transformation. They're building new residential complexes, commercial spaces, cultural venues. It's becoming a really trendy up-and-coming spot.
So if I'm looking for a property with, like, high potential for appreciation, that might be a good place to start.
It could be, yeah. But remember, higher potential for return often comes with higher risk. The port area is still developing, so there's some uncertainty there.
Right, of course. Do your research, understand the market.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to think outside the box. Rio has so many amazing neighborhoods, each with its own unique charm and potential. Explore. Ask questions, see what speaks to you.
Okay, so we've talked about the financial side of things, but let's be real. A big part of the appeal of Rio is the lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely. Rio offers a quality of life you just can't find in a lot of other places. The beaches, the mountains, the outdoor cafes, the music, the food.
It's a vibe.
It is.
And the guide even mentions that a lot of foreign buyers are choosing Rio not just as an investment, but as a place to actually live, either part-time or full-time.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds. A solid investment and a dream lifestyle.
I can see myself now sipping caipirinhas on my balcony, overlooking Ipanema Beach.
Sounds pretty nice. But it's important to be realistic too, Living in a different country, even one as beautiful as Brazil, it comes with its own challenges.
Oh, for sure. Like what?
Well, the language barrier, for one. English is spoken in tourist areas, but if you really want to get around, you'll need to pick up some Portuguese.
That's a good point. Time to brush up on my obrigado and por favor.
And beyond the language, there's the cultural adjustment. Brazil has its own customs and traditions, ways of doing things, and it takes time to adapt, to feel at home in a new environment.
So it's not just about buying a property. It's about immersing yourself in a new culture.
Exactly. It's an adventure.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything, from those nuts and bolts of buying property to the lifestyle, the culture, the economics.
We've looked at the potential upsides and the potential downsides. It's a lot to consider, but hopefully this deep dive has given you the information you need.
I think so too. Rio definitely sounds like an exciting place to invest, but it's not for everyone.
Right. It takes research, careful planning, and a bit of an adventurous spirit.
But for those who are up for the challenge, Rio can be an amazing place to invest and to live.
Absolutely.
So to wrap things up, what's the one key takeaway for our listeners who are dreaming of owning their own little piece of Rio?
Do your homework. Find a good team of local experts.
Yeah.
And be prepared for an adventure. Rio is a city that will surprise you in the best possible ways.
Well said. Good luck on your Rio real estate journey, and thanks for joining us for this deep dive.